Michael Bublé, known for his smooth, rich renditions of the Great American Songbook, is often compared to Frank Sinatra, Harry Connick Jr. Not bad for a young kid from Burnaby who grew up spending summers working on a commercial fishing boat with his dad. But music always was his dream, his passion. Michael's eventual success as an internationally honored star did not happen overnight. He spent years singing anywhere that would have him, from shopping malls to weddings, even doing singing telegrams. But his unwavering belief that this was his life's work and his resilience in the face of countless rejections made Michael Bublé the singer and the man he is today. I read a journalist's comment about you when you were just starting your career, and they said, "He's a nice kid, but his heart is all showbiz." Right from the beginning.
His heart is all showbiz.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself?
I would say that is a really deep, interesting question, because I do not believe when people say, well, people never change. I just can't articulate how wrong they are, because we do. We change, we grow. There are things that we get better and things that get worse. I was so ambitious. I believed so wholeheartedly that if only the right person could see me, if only the right group of people, that each one was a domino, and somehow if all those dominoes could fall, it would be impossible for my dream not to come true, because they would have to see how incredible I was and how, the potential I had. And I lived that ambition. It literally was all I thought about, all I dreamt about. I breathed, ate, slept it.
Was this from the time you were really little?
Yeah, and I think if you met my friends, they would tell you, each one had a unique relationship with me and that part of me. And they would tell you that at 15 years old in high school, they just couldn't handle that I was, because I was sure. I mean, it was sure. I mean, the dreams were not as big, but it was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make it, and when I do, I'm taking all of you to McDonald's. You know what I mean? Or White Spot. We're gonna go big.
And music was encouraged by your grandfather.
Music was encouraged by my grandfather, fostered by my grandfather. And I could never understand how you couldn't love it, be inspired by it. The drama, the cinematic part of the storytelling, the emotional part of, these songs taking you and sucking you in. I mean, I was just a little kid, and I remember feeling those things about music. And how could I, whatever happens in my life, music must be a huge part of it.
And so your grandfather did expose you to certain old songs, and you
I think
learned the books.
So my grandfather and I were always really close, and the relationship was just based on him being my hero, because he was the coolest guy. And he loved me, him and my grandma loved me, and we kept a very Italian family where both sets of grandparents were very close. And, especially my mom with her mom and her dad, and we spent every day there, and my little sisters and I. And when I was about 11 or 12, I started to discover the Great American Songbook, the standards. And
just think, you could have had a career as a hockey player, a fisherman. Mm-hmm. So many choices.
I did. I had a career as a fisherman.
What'd you think of it?
I think I was a better fisherman than I was a hockey player. As I look back in context now, I realize that being a fisherman was the greatest gift I think my father could have ever given me.
In what way?
In the way that he took a 14-year-old boy, and then my dad, old school, you know, let me come to work on this ship.
For a summer?
For every summer. And with guys that were 20 years old, 25 years old, 35 years old. And I started to learn through osmosis that, wow, so that's how adults treat adults. You know, by the way, I didn't learn by just learning and doing it. I made mistakes. I talked the way that a kid talks in high school to another kid. But I realized really quickly, wow, that doesn't work. It is the greatest lesson I ever learned in my life. The smartest people are the kindest people. The smartest people are able to forgive. They're able to find grace. They're able to, I don't even say forgive, they're able to find compassion and mercy, even when they're wronged. And the smartest people are able to make the hardest things easy through that empathy, that love, and that kindness. And I think this was a massive key in my life, in my success, in my business, in my marriage, in my friendships, was learning that. And even then, I was still a huge for a long time.
Those early days when you were determined that you were going to be a success and you just wanted opportunities to sing, and you'd sing anywhere?
Mm-hmm. Anywhere.
Tell me some of them.
I started I think I started working, I was 17 maybe, and I started working for this really beautiful woman named Alexis. And there was, I believe, a place called Balloon Action in the mall in West Van. And they would do singing telegrams.
Singing telegrams?
Yeah, so they'd send me out to...
Like what?
Oh, like they'd send me to a restaurant, and I would show up and I would say, "Good evening, everyone," you know, "My funny Valentine, sweet comic," and I would sing, and then they would clap and pay me $20, and I would go.
Off you go.
And that was it. Or I worked in many malls. I did a lot of busking, you know, where I'd go and set up in front of the shop, and it would be my grandpa sitting with me or walking with me through the malls. And I said, "Grandpa, you know, this is really what I want to do." And so he knew a trumpet player named Dave Korn. And he said, "Dave, you know, my grandson, I think he's going to be good. And can you hire him?" And this is not a joke. If you do, I will show up and I will come to your house and fix your carburetor.
Because he was a plumber.
And he did.
And so what made the difference? What made the jump to all of a sudden the enormous international stage?
I am one of those many 10 or 15-year overnight successes. I would say that the beginning really was a woman named Beverly Delich, who was, she had worked at the Peony. She was a professional organizer, and I had come at I think I was 17 or 18 years old. I had faked an ID so I could come into a karaoke contest at a place called the Big Bamboo, and I won. I blew everybody away. I did. I think Harry Connick Jr.'s It Had to Be You, and still living at home, you know. And then she called the house and she said, "Is this Michael?" And she said, "And I have good news and bad news." I said, "Wonderful." She said, "The good news is you are a tremendously talented young man and you blew everyone away. The bad news is we think you faked your ID and you are not you're not eligible to be in our contest because you're not of drinking age, and they're not thrilled at this place called the Big Bamboo that you were there." And she said, "You're disqualified from the contest." And she said, "But I do have good news." She said, "I'm part with a wonderful impresario," and I knew who it was, a man named Hugh Pickett. And we have something called the P&E Youth Talent Search. And I was so pissed. I'm P&E Youth Talent. And so I did the P&E Youth Talent Search, and I won. And the winner was to go to Memphis. So I went to Memphis. I believe I placed fourth. I had a complete meltdown about the whole thing. I was not a good loser. Everything I try to teach my kids and how important it is to lose with grace and dignity, I did the opposite. They still, apparently years later, would talk about this little Canadian that lost the talent search. And on the airplane home, in all my naivety, I looked at Bev Delich and I said, listen, I want you to be my manager. I said, I'll give you 15%. And she looked at me and she said, sweetheart, what is 15% of nothing? And then she said, okay, listen, no more of the musicians hiring you. You should hire the musicians. So I started doing that. I started getting club work. I started to audition for, I didn't want to, but I auditioned for these musicals in Vancouver, for these big kind of, revues. And finally, when it sort of all started to, I was now 25, and it just felt like I had knocked on every door. Every record company I'd ever met with had asked me to leave. Every agent, and they all said the same thing. And I was like, I thought they had talked to each other. They would all say, you are a really talented kid, but it's just, we don't see how this is going to work.
Because of the style?
The style, we don't see how this is commercial. We already have Frank, we have Harry, And in Toronto, I did a corporate event, and I had literally had like a couple independent records of Bublé left. And I did this event, and I gave a CD to this guy at the event. The next morning, Bev called. She said, I've just been called by Michael McSweeney. Do you know who he is? He works for the Honorable Brian Mulroney, and they want to meet you. So the next morning, I went to a hotel, and I met Mila. And she couldn't have been, I can imagine she must have seen how scared I was, how nervous I was, how ambitious I was. And she said, my daughter is getting married, and we would love to have you. And I was honored to be asked, but I also, I'm gonna sing at a wedding, okay. And she said, no, David Foster will be there. That night, David, Brian Mulroney had David kind of under his arm. I could see him, look at this kid. And David came and said, hey, you're great, how'd you like to come down to LA? And he did it, number one, because he is incredibly kind. Number two, he did it because he probably saw the potential. And I think number three, he felt maybe I can use this kid to come and, he does a lot of fundraising, and the kid can come and show up and do some fundraising stuff. So the relationship continued in that way, where I would show up and do the odd thing, and I would drive him crazy. And to a point where I said to him, sign me or produce. And he said, get lost, I said, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in the tracks we have. I'm asking you to give me one chance to speak to the president of Warner Brothers and say my case, And if it doesn't work, and if they're not interested, I will never bother you again. So about 2 days later, he called me. He said, let's see what a 25-year-old kid knows about the record business. I was 26. And he said, okay, we have a meeting. So I walked in to the meeting the next week. I think in my life, I can tell you that I have, besides a cancer diagnosis for my son, I don't think I've ever felt that way. I think I realized that this was, for me, it was just all the chips were in.
Did you sing for him?
No, ma'am. I remember going to sit down, and I remember as I sat down, he said, "So why should we sign you? We have Sinatra on reprise." And he said it like that. And I said, "With all due respect, Mr. Wally, Sinatra's dead. And if you give me an opportunity, I will be a big part of keeping the songbook alive. I will never stop. It's like my passion." And we sat down, we listened to 5 songs. I don't think Tom made a or a, Tom, it was stoic. Didn't give away anything, whatever he was feeling. I remember walking out of the office with David, and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Mike, man, you did great. I had asked my grandfather to come and stay with me because I just don't think I could handle the stress of what was happening." And I remember coming up the elevator, and I got on the phone, and I picked up the phone, and it was David. And he said, "Hey, son," he said, "Hey, Mike, man," he said, I want to welcome you to our family." He said, "You're never going to have to worry, He said, we got your back. I'm so happy for you. I'm proud of you. I can't wait to do this." Wow. And I was like, this is, and
your life as a star began.
And that's sort of the first part of it. And then it came to a point where Beverly Delich was such a humanitarian, I'll cry because she did what very few human beings would ever do. She loved me enough to say, I realize the rarefied air we're in, and I want to be a part of this with you, but I think you need someone who can manage you and help you to get to this next level. David would say to me, "Mike, you got to meet with Bruce Allen." "I know Bruce Allen. I'm not meeting with Bruce Allen." "Mike, I'm telling you, he's the best manager in the business. There's nobody like him, Mike. You got to meet with Bruce Allen." "I'm not going to meet with Bruce Allen. I just couldn't. So I gave in, and I went to the Shark Club in Vancouver. I sat down, and I remember he was watching a football game, and he was kind of half paying attention to me, just like I thought he would, right? And he said, "Yeah, kid, so what do you want to do with the broad?" And I said, "Bev? Yeah." I said, "She's an incredible woman. She's been nothing but good, loyal." I said, "If there's not a place for her within the management, at the very least, I want to take care of her, And he said, "God damn, that's refreshing to hear that. That's really great, kid." He said, "You don't hear a lot like that. You don't hear that a lot in this business." He said, "And she is a damn fine woman. Good for you." And I said, and this is the truth, I say, "Where do I sign?"
And so that opened up the world to you as a professional. Tell me what it was like when you were at the apex of your career. Everybody wanted you internationally, be here, be there. Your best friends were all the names from all the papers. How did you handle that kind of celebrity and attention?
I think I was more insecure, and I think I was young, and I think I made the same mistakes that every young person, not young, I just wasn't mature. I just wasn't. And probably I was extra late, because I don't think, and I look back and I see myself in interviews, and what I think is charming for me comes off as cocky. What I think is charisma comes off to me as deep insecurity. I will tell you this, I think my mom and dad loved me. I think they set me up with, and my family was a certain way. And I think I was always kind. I was never who was aloof or cruel to mean, just immature. Just immature in everything, in relationships and how I saw myself.
And you mentioned earlier that the difficulty when Noah was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 3.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, that'll mature you. Yeah. That really ruined Halloween for us. Yeah, no. And,
Devastating.
Yes, completely, yeah. But you know, it is an honor to exist, right? And part of that honor comes with suffering, and I live a deeper life because of it. I mean, I've lost that innocence. Of course I have. I'm still ambitious, but it's a different thing. My ambition is to make sure that I create a legacy for my kids, that they're always proud of their dad. I think every time I do something or say something, I always think about how, you know, what are they going to feel about it when I'm gone? And so it was, it's funny, you know, how you go through these moments where you think you know who you are, and you think you know what pain is or suffering is, and then, you know, or even joy. And then you find out, you know, you thought your first Grammy was the greatest thing in the whole world. I mean, for me, it was a Juno more. That Juno was like, and I really thought, I remember my hands under the table at the Junos, and it wasn't at the event, it was at the pre, and it was for the new artist. And I remember my hands were just so sweaty, and when I heard my name, I couldn't be sure that it was my name, but I clearly remember thinking, there could never be a better moment than this. This is the best moment of my life. Like, oh my God, I did it. They can't take it away. That's it. This is it. And then you have your child, and you go like, what was I thinking? You know what I mean? That was the best, and you realize it just all pales in comparison to this thing, you know? And so you can imagine, you know, that the news we got was devastating.
He's now healthy.
Yeah.
You have four
You know,
wonderful
he's
children.
beating me up, yeah. Yeah. I got 4 children, and I have it's funny, I don't love when people talk about their spouse and they're too gooey, mushy, because I know for sure then that either they're not out of the closet or the divorce is coming quickly, you know? Because you know when people talk too much about, and she's so wonderful, and and you go like, oh, come on. Let me tell you, the star of the show is Luisana Lopilato. The star of the show, the rock of my family, the anchor in my life, my hero. Ugh. And I'm not emotional because of her. I'm emotional because I didn't know when it would be, but I'm figuring this is as good a time as any to come out of the closet.
Thank you, Michael.
You men out there, I am hungry, and I'm hungry for you.
Michael Bublé, the man from Burnaby, a genuine BC legend.